Back with you on SportsCenter AM with breaking news. This just into ESPN. Urban Meyer will retire following the Rose Bowl game for Ohio State this season. He called it a bucket list item with our own Marty Smith earlier this week, saying that he'd never coached in a Rose Bowl. That will be his final game. This news just coming in to ESPN. For more, let's throw it down to Mike Greenberg in New York.
Yeah, I have Jesse Palmer with me here this morning, so a perfect time to try and get some reaction to this. It certainly has been thought throughout this very difficult year with all of the things that have happened at Ohio State that it might be the final season for Urban Meyer. Now we know it will be. What's your reaction?
Very surprised. And there were reports that because of his health concerns, he would try to coach through 2019 before handing it over, presumably, to his offensive coordinator, Ryan Day, who was the interim coach this year for the first 3 games. But this is very, very surprising, I think, and shocking to the landscape of college football. At the end of the day, Urban Meyer, one of the all-time greats doing it, having won 3 national championships, 2 at Florida, 1 at Ohio State. And of course, we always knew health was an issue. It's what forced him to step down at the University of Florida. It's now what's forcing him to step down at the Ohio State University much sooner than people anticipated. You wonder if this has to do with transparency, wanting to put it out in front of the recruiting cycle coming up here very, very quickly for recruits. But obviously very, very shocking news.
National Signing Day is about 2 weeks away. They have a class of 15. I'm just catching up on this as we go. This news literally just came in through the newsroom. You think back to all the things that happened over the summer, so much of the controversy involving Meyer and the center of all of that, and you wonder how much of a toll that took on him. That's really where this conversation began. Paul Feinbaum on our network and many others suggested at that time, well, this will probably be the last year for Urban Meyer. We don't know to this point what, if any, role all of that played in this. One way or another, this is a guy who was, 13 people had a decision to make, and he could have been playing for a national championship this year. We don't know if that would have been a different decision one way or the other, but this was a team that was good enough, you could make an argument, to be in the college football playoff.
No doubt about it. They scored 62 points against the then number 4 team, Michigan, at the end of the year. Made a very, very big statement. And, I just think back to watching Urban Meyer this year on the sideline, and so much emotion. He's so invested in the program, but he just seemed like he was in pain, right? And you wonder how much of that, to your point, had to do with what happened in the offseason leading up to this year. It's been a very, very resilient team.
Yeah.
Having to overcome the 3-game suspension to Urban Meyer, having to lose Nick Bosa, arguably maybe the first pick in this upcoming NFL draft, and be able to kind of fight through all that, win that game in a rivalry game against Michigan, win the Big Ten, and have an opportunity to reach the playoff. A resilient team, and I think Urban Meyer himself, very, very resilient.
You make an interesting point, because this is a team that's 12-1, and yet it feels like it was a roller coaster of a year. They lost 1 game all year long, but it never felt like it was a great year, maybe by Ohio State standards. Maybe that's another indication of the kind of pressure that is on the person who was the coach of Ohio State when you think about it. It never felt like this was a great year for Ohio State, despite the fact that when it's all said and done, they lost 1 game. They won the Big Ten championship. They annihilated their rival in their biggest game against Michigan, and they're playing in the Rose Bowl.
Very high expectations, and at the end, I just think for Ohio State, it was too little, too late. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they were ranked number 10 in the college football playoff ranking, and as good as they looked against Michigan late, and an impressive win against Northwestern, then number 21 team in the country, it was too much to overcome and surpass Oklahoma, and then eventually the committee put Georgia in, ranked ahead of Ohio State in the final rankings as well. But, you look back at Urban Meyer, this seemed like such a great fit for him. Being from the state of Ohio, this really, in a lot of ways, I think was a dream job for him. Did a remarkable job from the get-go since he took over, got the program back to its winning ways, winning big games, going to big-time bowl games, and going to playoffs. And now that era has come to an end.
Yeah, won a national championship with his 3rd-string quarterback. He will, from what we are understanding right now, he will coach the Rose Bowl game, and that'll be it. Handed off to his very highly thought-of offensive coordinator, Ryan Day, who seemed like the coach in waiting, but perhaps not quite this quickly.